Welcome, everybody, to the Mere Nonsense Podcast. We are your hosts, Brad and Z, with a special guest, Landy. We've been kind of not really staying on schedule because I got sick like 2 weeks ago. So we just decided to completely skip the third episode for the month. And then we were supposed to do this episode on Sunday, but I kind of got a little drunk with my family. And by a little drunk, I definitely blacked out that night. And now we don't have Venus for this episode either because she got sick as well. So, I mean...
And Billy's just gone.
Yeah.
He's off the podcast. We don't know where he's at.
Better looking replacement.
This,
Exactly.
Yep, permanent replacement right here.
This one can actually grow a beard.
That's true.
Yeah. But now Billy's doing his own thing. He's on a little work trip, but we'll manage.
Rehab now?
Yeah. Supposed to keep it low key for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
No, but
It's actually rehab from Conquerors. He's played too much time in it.
right. They had to do an
We had
intervention.
We had an intervention with him.
Stop playing
and,
Conqueror's Blade. So he ended up going back to Company of Heroes.
Company of Heroes.
But
the new addiction's coming Friday, so
That's right.
MW2 baby.
Yeah, so today we have our episode of Top 5 Horror Movies. I guess there's no specific here, let me just say I chose my top 5 as like my favorite / they were the scariest to me at the time. Whereas I'm assuming,
I chose mine as most enjoyable.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I went in an even different direction and took ones that I thought were important to the genre.
Which is good.
So Night of the Living Dead's not on there?
Do love me some Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah. The black and white one?
Yeah.
I love
OG
that.
George Romero.
I would love... I would not mind having that in the background every day. Every single day.
We can make that happen real easy.
Every single day.
I actually want... So isn't like the whole thing with that movie that like the rights are just like out there, like nobody actually has the rights to it?
Yeah,
So-
George Romero never patented it.
So can you get DMCA'd if you were to just put a TV screen behind you playing it every podcast?
No, not if it's in the public domain.
Yeah,
Right.
there you go.
But, well, I will start off with the list, and then we'll go from there. I think
Sure.
Brad will choose his afterwards, and then Landy will leave him for last.
That's good.
Right off the bat, for me, I think, not entirely sure because I don't know what Brad has on his list completely or Landy, but first one for me is The Conjuring. Now, anyone that has seen The Conjuring, whether they actually enjoyed it or not, you gotta admit it was kind of a nice. It was fresh. It was not exactly like your usual horror movie, and they added some things in there that was really, really fun / terrifying, especially that clapping game. I'm pretty sure that's what really like reeled a lot of people in there. Yeah, that movie was awesome. So I had to instantly put that in my list.
And it's like that. I think that's the definition of like a modern day classic. You know, like
Right.
I think everyone's gonna be watching that for years to come because that's just, not genre defining, but it reinvigorated the genre. It's something that I think a lot of people who don't usually watch horror, I think they went to go see that. It's a great movie. So
Yeah, it's definitely good to it's good like gateway into the horror movie genre.
Right.
This is also coming from the guy James Wan that made Saw. That first one on its own was pretty unique and cool. But
Let's not forget his new classic, Maligma.
Malignant, yeah.
Malignant.
Well, it's like a modern day franchise, right? I believe the fourth one is expected to come out. You had Patrick Wilson, so you had a name brand, A-list actor in it, and I think in a lot of these kind of modern day pictures that have gotten popular, you've seen some notable actors uh, in these roles, whereas for a long period of time, you had a lot of up and coming, we'll say, actors, filling all roles in horror.
Right. Yeah, no. For sure. And then I'm a huge fan of this, is for James Wan movies. He tends to always cast Patrick Wilson in something. He's just a fun actor to have around for a horror movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, going on to my
Hey.
second one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good.
Okay. Going on to my second one, Wreck. Now for people that don't know, which for the most part they do, but for those that don't know, Quarantine was a movie that came out back in what?
Like '09 or some shit.
Maybe a little bit before. But
Oh wait, close.
yeah. That was the Americanized version of Wreck, a movie that was made in Spain. It was all in Spanish. It was really good. And I mean, both of them, the first one was like, I don't know, scene for scene, the same thing. It was just Americanized, really.
It's the fact that I can't understand what they're saying. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
It's like anime.
All foreign films, horror films now.
Yeah. Nah, I mean, that was my introduction to found footage movies. And I thought it was really intense and terrifying. So when I found out that Quarantine was an Americanized version, I looked at Wreck, and I mean, either or. It could be Quarantine or Wreck, but I had to put it on the list just because of that. Like, for the first found footage film that I've ever seen, it was awesome.
I think that's like the most surprising for me on your list.
Why?
When you said it was on there, I don't know. I didn't think that'd be in your top five. I like the movie.
Yeah.
It is creepy. Like even Quarantine. They're both good. I mean they're literally the same movie, but
Right.
the scene at the end with the night vision and her getting fucking dragged away or
Yanked
whatever.
back.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Wreck might be one of, if arguably not the best, found footage horror films. It's done very well. It manages to keep high pacing, which I think is a problem a lot of found footage struggles with, which is like, how do you keep people invested and interested through it?
I think a
And
lot
it's
of
just
Blair
like-
Witch fans would fight you. I agree with you.
That's fair. And also like pretty decent camera work. We recently rewatched Wreck together, and like it is impressive that even though he's holding the cam the whole time, like a lot of the movie's visible and like in the shot, and it's
Right.
not horrible to watch from a cinematic perspective, like say Cloverfield or Blair Witch, where like a lot of the generated horror is literally the fact that the cameraman is having a perpetual seizure.
Right, exactly like that. It's funny, just to throw this in there because we don't have Venus on this episode, but I'm pretty sure she would chime in on this because she was the other person we were having a conversation about this, where that's exactly the reason why I hated Cloverfield.
Yeah.
It gives
it
you
was
motion
just
sickness.
it was
bro.
just no, it didn't give me motion sickness. It was just too much shaking. There was literally nothing about it that made me enjoy it. Like,
I don't like Cloverfield for many other reasons, but that is a good point.
It's like I get the concept that it's realistic that if you were actually terrified, maybe you couldn't keep the camera on point the whole time. But I
Right.
think there's also going along with like suspend your disbelief. It's like please make the movie watchable. And
Right.
I think sometimes you can go too far where, like if it's literally the guy's juggling the camera, like yeah, okay, maybe that's like a realistic view of how the cameraman would react, but
Yeah.
it would also be realistic for him to drop the camera and run away. So like we have to find a middle ground somewhere, and I thought Rec and Quarantine do it pretty well.
I think we do have to give props to Blair Witch though, because as far as I know, that's one of the first, or if not the first, found footage horror
Yeah,
movie to come out.
it's definitely the most prominent early one.
Right.
Um, but I honestly wonder how much of that is the fact that it was also one of the first like insane viral marketing campaigns around a
Right.
horror movie. And
Well, how many
like
people thought it was real when when they were
exactly.
first showing trailers for it? Because it's quote unquote found footage, right? So people think that that's actually real, that they found a tape and then stitch it into a movie. You know.
Yeah, so it's like I challenge you to watch Blair Witch now, or anyone that feels very strongly that Blair Witch was a good movie because they saw it close to release, and argue it really holds up right now.
And so I'm one of those where I did see it early on. I saw it a long time ago and I liked it. And I thought I remembered liking it a lot more. Then I watched it like 3 years ago. I hated it. It was so boring. It was so slow.
Not to like go too far afield, but I actually read a thing very recently that you're meant to see the Blair Witch at the end, and it's actually a cameraman error that it doesn't pan to it because he panned the wrong way.
Oh
And so like
No
that
shit.
is why you
way.
don't see the witch at the end. Yeah, no joke. If you search that on Reddit, I believe that's where I saw it.
What the fuck?
Wow.
Well,
Well,
that's sad.
yeah, right. Now that kind of that reminds me of that YouTube channel, How It Should Have Ended. They
Right.
Yeah.
did it perfectly for Blair Witch. Like they're doing that same ending, and then when the camera falls over, the director's just like, "Cut, cut, cut! You messed up. You're supposed to pan this way to see the camera or to the witch, but no, you ruined it. Now this movie sucks. You guys suck."
We only do these in one takes for whatever reason.
Well, actually, another thing about that one take. Now that you reminded me, uh, they have not seen, or if I remember correctly, you guys told me you did not see, but Brad and I, a while back, we ended up seeing this movie with Elizabeth Olsen called Silent House, where the whole movie was supposed to be one take. And it was just her in this house just being chased by a murderer that killed her dad in the beginning, I believe. Um,
Did I watch this?
yeah, with you.
Clearly, it
Yeah,
left an impression.
yeah, right. Well, that was probably also around the same time where like whenever we did watch horror movies, we kind of just talked mad shit about it. So
I mean, we still do.
like it's not really memorable, not at all. But
It has a
yeah,
43% on Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah,
Rotten Tomatoes is a really difficult thing to judge horror with because there is a lot of like good horror rated poorly and vice versa.
yeah.
Well, so there's Metacritic, there's Rotten Tomato score, and then if you just Google it, doesn't show you. But okay, so Google users, 73% of Google users like it.
Gotcha.
Not to go on too much of a tangent, but I watch these guys on TikTok where it's called Bargain Bin Bonanza, and they choose a theme for the week, and what they have to do is they have to go to your Ross or your whatever discount store, right? Your TJ Maxx, go into the $5 movie bin, and they're supposed to do something for that theme. So usually it's find the biggest difference between Rotten Tomatoes and uh, movie critic or the fan score, or try to get two scores that equal 69 or something, and they do that. It's super entertaining.
I think
Interesting.
also going into those Metacritics and Rotten Tomatoes and all that, a lot of people nowadays are starting to understand, or like they already didn't pay attention too much to those critics. They're starting to lean towards more the audience score than anything.
Yeah. I view Rotten Tomatoes as like a Yelp score, where it's just like someone probably had a bad experience and I don't care because it's their personal opinion.
Right. That's actually a decent way of putting it. Yelp. So my third one on the list I will put as Annabelle 2. The first Annabelle was complete dog shit. I even tried rewatching it, thinking it was gonna be like when I saw the Ouija movie, and then I saw the second one. The second one was the prequel, and then it helped me understand and appreciate the first one even more. Nah, that Annabelle 1 is still dog shit. I didn't like it at all. But Annabelle 2 was fucking terrifying because the main character in this is a girl that can't walk on her own. So like the entire time she's at this foster home just constantly stalked by this demon that is Annabelle, and she just couldn't really do anything about it. I remember one scene.
She was in a wheelchair, or was she in braces?
Both.
I think braced, right?
Both.
But she could walk, right? She had use of her legs. It was just
not entirely on her own. She needed help for it.
I think I remember her being on like the braces or whatever and trying to get away at some point.
Well,
and then another one, she's in the wheelchair.
One part specifically that I thought was just like, holy fuck! Like it was pretty fucking terrifying. Was when she was these stairs that they had. They had this like chair that kind of just like went up and helped her get up on her own. But she's getting chased and she wants to go on the chair to go downstairs, but it's not working. The mechanics aren't working. So she's just like sitting there, and then like the whole background and the room next to her is just getting darker and darker and darker. And then she just gets pulled away. I was like, damn, GG's, get fucked. But
that shit's scary. Cause like, so my parents have one of those at our house for my grandma, and I just picture like my grandma in that situation where like fucking Chucky's coming after her and she has to
Oh, yeah.
You have to put on the seatbelt and everything too. It's a lot.
I think she's even more fucked just because people that don't have disabilities in Child's Play still get pretty fucking destroyed by him. So rip to your grandma.
Tagline for this episode: rip to your grandma.
R.I.P. to your grandma.
I'm poor one for my grandma. Oh shit.
Annabelle 2 was good though.
Yeah,
I agree with Annabelle 1 not being great, but 2 I think helped it along. I think Annabelle 1 was okay at like establishing it, but I don't think it was good.
I'll be honest, I haven't seen any. I think there's 3, right? I don't think I've seen any of them.
Watch party?
Personally, I think only Annabelle 2 is worth watching.
Which one was
Can
3?
you watch 2 without seeing 1 though? Would I really appreciate this?
Absolutely. Because the only thing that really connects Annabelle 1 with 2 is literally the very end of Annabelle 2. Pretty much just is the next scene over to Annabelle 1, and that's it. That's really all it connects.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So technically you could watch 2 and then 1, then yeah.
Right.
If you wanted to watch 1, but
yeah. And then the third one had to do with all
it's
the
at
artifacts in the
house,
Warren's
right?
house. Yeah. Going crazy. Which that alone was probably like a Conjuring 2.5.
Yeah.
Because anything with the Warrens at this point is really just a Conjuring movie.
Well, I might be Annabelling in my future.
Shit. Let us know. I'm okay with
Spirit
watching
Halloween has an Annabelle doll, and I kind of want to get it.
I'm surprised Spencer's didn't jump onto that shit. Like, they were like the leading store for selling Chucky and the Bride for the longest time.
Yeah.
But
Bride Chucky, dude.
So for my fourth one, Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003.
Over the classic.
Yes. Over the classic.
Was that Rob Zombie?
No.
No.
I don't think he's done anything with Texas Chainsaw. I think it was just Halloween. No, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2003 one with Jessica Biel. That was at the time the goriest movie I've ever seen, which made it even more terrifying because this dude was a fucking menace. Like, we were what? Because it came out in 2003. We were in third grade, so probably like what, 7, maybe 8. Dude.
In 2003?
Yeah.
Ah, man, feeling real old here.
It's all right. Yeah, no, so I remember specifically the one scene that will always stay in my head was when this blonde guy ends up getting his kneecaps just cut straight off, like just right there on the kneecap, so he lost his legs. And then Leatherface takes him to the basement and hooks him.
Dead by Daylight style.
Yeah, I honestly think this movie was a giant inspiration to that game because of the way the hooks that were set up.
I'm sure.
It was basement, so you know anyone that plays Dead by Daylight, fucking basement Bubba.
Basement.
Yeah, fucking assholes that play like that. No, but on top of that, it gave us one of the coolest sounds for synonymous with a killer. So like Michael Myers has his, you know, and then Leatherface from this movie, it was some sort of I don't know, not recorder. I don't know, but like the sound, we can eventually look it up. But the sound, whenever it was, I don't know if it was in the beginning or the end. I think it was the beginning when the people were supposed to be making like a documentary of what happened at that house. There's this one song or this one sound that goes like on repeat, and it's just like everyone agrees for the most part that sound is gonna stay with Leatherface, to the point where his new game that's coming out, they still use that sound.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little surprised that when you go to like the telltale sound, like Jason's like isn't the first Michael Myers before the classic Jason.
I think it's just because I saw Michael Myers recently. I saw
That's
Halloween
fair.
Ends recently, so yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen anything with Jason. But
We're
no,
also
yeah,
big
you're
Dead by
right.
Daylight guys, and Jason's not in there, so.
Yeah,
A tragedy.
it really is. Yeah,
I wish they could get the rights to him and then just shut down the Friday the 13th game.
yeah, honestly. But no, that movie was super gory for me at the time, and it was just terrifying as fuck because aside from your usual Friday the 13th and Halloween characters, this guy was actually running after you. Like, for the most part, you were used to people, the killers just walking towards you, and then somehow they magically find their fucking way right in front of you. But no, this guy was legit, like, running after you, revving the fucking chainsaw, just gives no fucks.
There's something about with a chainsaw too. So it's like there's a couple different aspects, right? Because you're right. I was literally just talking to someone about the Mummy, like the original Mummy,
Yeah.
and they were like, I was like, it's hard to be scared of the Mummy. He goes like half a mile an hour, and they were like, yeah, but he's really persistent. And it's like Leatherface is really persistent too at a full sprint with
Right.
a chainsaw. And it's like, you know, think about it, because I believe the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the 70s, right? Mid 70s. And so you hadn't even established that a slasher was supposed to carry a butcher's knife, and he is just mobbing you full on with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
It's like such an iconic like item in horror that, you know, like Leatherface really ranks up there with like Jason and Michael and Freddy as like, this is not someone that you want to come after you.
Right.
I keep seeing these videos of people doing the Michael Myers challenge, which is you start next to each other. One of them has to like walking pace with a knife, and then the other has to get their keys to open up a door, and the amount of people that like actually wrapped around the corner and were like fumbling their keys trying to get it, and then
They're
and
just
it's not like they're
overthinking it,
sprinting
yeah.
though, yeah. The literally the Michael Myers movies are just the characters in the Halloween movies are people just being dumb. That's all that is people being dumb. Like Jason, Friday the 13th, guy's supernatural, he's like fucking like teleporting somehow, I mean, in the same sense he is supposed to be like Michael Myers where he's just chasing constantly. There's some extra shit in there, he can fucking teleport.
Right.
But he's also like 100 times more brutal, but
Yeah, and then I don't know. I feel
and
like
uses more weapons.
they could just never make up their minds really with what exactly Myers was. Like, I think it was Halloween Kills. They tried to make him seem like he was some sort of supernatural being, and all the other ones are just like, no, he's just some human that's fucked up. And I don't know. I just feel like,
Halloween Kills, they did everything that they could do to kill the guy,
yeah,
and he wasn't dead. Like he's also, well, he's supposed to be like evil incarnate is supposed to be the whole thing, so he can't die.
yeah,
I think is the, but they never chopped off his head, nothing like that, that kind of deal. So,
right,
and then I think with Friday the 13th, I think they were very like after the first one, I think they were very blatant that Jason is just like supernatural. Like this man's not gonna die.
Yeah, well, Jason should have died numerous times, right? Like in all the movies, Jason gets messed up, right? Jason gets
He was
shot, he gets stabbed, he
chained
gets run
underwater
over.
for years, right? Like
Yeah.
that was.
And they shot him to space.
yeah. He's
Right.
he's truly supernatural. Yeah,
Have you guys watched Jason X?
yeah.
I have.
That's such a
I did
trash
I did
fucking
see it in the
movie.
last year.
Same.
What is scarier than Jason chasing you in space?
In space?
Just
Leprechaun
remember-
in space.
Just remember, in space,
Leprechaun
no
in the
one
hood.
can hear you scream.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my fourth one. My fifth one is brand new, really, within the last month or so. Me, Landy, Venus, and a few other people have been just going on a roll, really, with just watching a bunch of horror movies. And I've been making good use of my Shudder membership. So there was a movie on there that came out in 2020. I don't know how it passed by my radar, but it was 2020. So
Unacceptable.
The Dark and the Wicked. Holy shit. Like, when I tell you I have not been terrified from a movie in a long time since this. Like, fuck, man. I legit, at one point, just because I'm going to blame it on my headphones just because. But I'm always hearing a lot of, like, random bass thuds through my headphones. So, like, watching this movie, I think I'm, like, hearing footsteps every now and then. It got to the point with this fucking movie that I ended up leaving the lights on while watching the movie. I was like, no fucking way, man. I'm just fucking paranoid at this point. The movie was like, and it didn't necessarily do anything new / creative, really. It was just good at like keeping me at the edge of my seat. So spoilers ahead, really. There was this one part in the movie where there's this, I guess, demon that ends up using the dead mother as kind of like a spirit, its own vessel to like fuck with the kids, not kids, but like the mom's children that are grown-ups. She ends up stalking them outside, and just like, she's just outside in the fucking grass, levitating, looking weird as shit, just staring at them. And like, you just feel the tension because the son cannot keep his eyes away from it while she's just levitating and like trying to talk to him, trying to tell him to come outside. And then until finally, like, he looks away, I think, and then he looks back and she's gone. But no, that The Dark and the Wicked is such a good movie, in my opinion. I absolutely loved it. Terrified the fuck out of me. So I had to, like, after I finished watching, I'm like, this is instantly going on my list because it was just that good for me. But
I thought it was good. Like, you know, it's interesting. It was like a take on you know, both like the haunted house as well as, you know, like the impact of like the cursed family. And you know, plus they were in a farm in the middle of nowhere. And like, you know, I'll say this, I can't imagine being somewhere like in the Midwest and then like watching a movie like that. It'd probably be terrifying.
right. Yeah. It it did it did pretty well with like the, I don't know, because it was out there in the open in like a ranch or farm, whatever, and it was good. The silence was actually killing me sometimes, because when the noise was actually coming through, it was just like, oh fuck, here it goes.
I
But
just watched the trailer. It looks creepy.
It was definitely creepy.
yeah, it was really good. I
I think
recommend.
I saw what you were saying. Like the mom is standing in like the grass and she's just smiling.
Yeah,
Creepy as
Yeah.
fuck.
they
Yeah.
did. Yeah, they did really good with that. So yeah, that was my list. Next person would be Brad. He's gonna share us what he put in his list.
So, like I said, mine is more like based off of enjoyability. They're not necessarily like scary. And then I also like some of these are a little more up for debate for me. So I'm really bad with top fives because I just like movies and I don't like picking favorites for things. That's with anything, not just movies. But I think the first would be Insidious 1 and 2. I'm combining those two. Insidious 1 was really enjoyable. It had some good jump scares. It had an interesting story. And then all of the things happening in 1 were amplified by 2, and 2 made 1 a better film in retrospect because it explained what happened in that while adding more to it. And it was just fantastic.
Right.
And then we don't talk about 3 or
The other
I
ones
think there is
after.
a fourth
Or
one.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's a 4, right? It's just like a spin-off Insidious, technically.
Kind
So
of. Yeah.
yeah, but
Just because you don't put the number doesn't mean it doesn't count.
you're not wrong. Um, but yeah, I mean, nothing to really expand from that. Those are just super enjoyable movies. There's a little bit of comedy in there. You know, the whole tiptoe through the tulips
Yeah.
song, like that fits in so perfectly with horror movies.
I was having a conversation with Landy the other day about that. Before we watched the new Hellraiser movie, we were watching the original one, and I was telling him, like, I kind of miss movies being able to use music in a unique way to just like add to the atmosphere. Really, like, it doesn't need to make it scarier, but it makes it a little more unique than just your usual pop just to jump scare you, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what Insidious did with Tiptoe Through the Tulips, as well as its main like violin. Yeah, the violin scratch. It was just, I thought that was awesome.
The iconic scene is it's broad daylight, which this is another reason why I really enjoyed this, is because it was broad daylight conversation where it pans to one face, back to the other, back to the face, and then as it came to this one, the red man's face was right there, you know.
Right.
I don't remember if there was violin during that or not, but that was absolutely fucking terrifying. And a lot of horror movies do it where it's only at night where like the things happen.
The jump scares.
Having something happen during the day, like I actually enjoyed that. It was surprising, and it gave me one of the best fucking jump scares of my life.
Right. I'll definitely agree with that one for sure.
Yeah. I've seen the first two. I have not gone past two, but both I thought were strong and like another great take on kind of the supernatural thriller.
Yeah. One thing I will say about, I believe it's three. I think it's three. Um, it's the one that this girl, she was in an accident, so similar to Conjure or Annabelle 2, where she can't walk. She's in a hospital bed, and she's basically bound to the hospital bed while all this shit's happening to her. And there's a point where she's like teleported through the floor, and she's on the ceiling now, attached to the ceiling as something's coming up to her.
Yeah.
And like that's scary. But I put Insidious 1 and 2 combined again because they make them more, 2 makes it more enjoyable than it already was for me.
Right.
Another one, this isn't on my list, but Ouija. Me and Z watched Ouija 1, which was a terrible fucking movie. It just, like, it didn't make sense. The jump scares weren't great. Like, it had terrible build up. Then we watched Ouija 2, and it completely changed my mind on both of them. Like, Ouija 2 is so fucking good, and then it actually made Ouija 1 make sense.
Yeah, it just made him
think
that
if
much
I've
more enjoyable.
seen the Ouija movies.
Yeah.
Those
I feel like-
honestly, I would say, is worth a watch. Like if you want to watch both of them are worth a watch.
Because I was gonna say, I feel like the Ouija board is like so ubiquitous now, especially in like teen and then there were none like type plots, you know?
Yeah.
Like I just watched one where it's like a bunch of, teens having a party and like the housekeeper essentially invites them to play a Ouija-esque game and so like it blends a little bit, but I'll have to go back and take a look. The titular Ouija.
More watch parties. That's all that is.
There you go.
Yeah, those were interesting. Because again, like I remember the first one we were just drudging through it. It wasn't enjoyable from what I remember, and yeah. But so my next one would be Conjuring as well. Again, it's a just modern horror classic in my opinion. I think it really kickstarted so now we have like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but Conjuring, you know. So we have it's kicked off all the Conjuring movies: Annabelle, The Nun, La Llorona. We're gonna have the Crooked Man, you know.
Which I think,
and I do like that. So
I personally think they're kind of like, I don't know, they're kind of reaching. They're kind of just like, I don't know, choosing. I feel like they're choosing the wrong monsters right now.
I think the Crooked Man was just so popular because of what was it, Conjuring 2, where it popped in. And I think a lot of people like voiced that, like, oh, that thing is so cool, we want it to be its own movie. Now the Nun makes sense because the Nun is Valak, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was like what like Valak originated from, was possessing that nun, and that's where everything kicks off, and why she looks like a fucking nun in the Conjuring movies. Plus there's the whole thing with like the husband, like Valak's supposed to kill the husband or whatever, so then we got to get some backstory on Valak now. So
right, I just remember
La Llorona was out of left field.
I'd have to look. I'd have to look up this article again, but I do remember there was a conversation pretty much of what monsters to go with next, and they ended up choosing the Crooked Man and whoever else over these other certain monsters. I don't know. I'd have to look at it again. A really good one I thought was he was introduced in the third Annabelle movie. Yeah.
The Ferryman?
Yeah, the Ferryman.
Yeah.
That's an interesting take. I think they did pretty good with him. The movie itself, but the character in the lore was pretty cool.
The Ferryman's a Greek mythology thing. He's the one where you're supposed to pay him the coins to
take you across Styx.
The river Styx, yeah.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting to see where they go with that. But not much else to expand on The Conjuring. Um, number three would be Cabin in the Woods. I fucking love that
Classic.
movie. I fucking love that movie. It's so dumb, but it's fun because the reason why I enjoyed it as much as I did is I remember like when it was first coming out, the trailers that were coming out were that hey, this is a horror movie. This is your normal horror movie, but like kind of. And then everyone would be like, "What do you mean, kind of?" You know, where it's like there's like the trailers would have like there's like a twist or whatever that no one's expecting, and I didn't fucking expect it. It's a whole, like they're fucking gambling on which way that this is supposed to go. Are they gonna go the normal Evil Dead route, or are they gonna go with the fucking unicorn or whatever the you
Right.
know? Um, there's the one guy that was like really hoping for the mermaids or some shit, you know.
Yeah.
I love that. Recently, I found out. You remember the stoner guy, Z?
Yeah.
He, they forced him to wear a hoodie at the entire time during the movie because he is jacked. He was in such good fucking shape, but they didn't want the audience to see that, so they made him wear bum clothes.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Damn.
Just how it ended too. Like just the boom, Titan hand, they're all dead. Like that to me was so funny. Um, and this is where it starts to skew off of like, is that a horror movie or is it a horror comedy?
Right.
I would still consider it a horror movie. And then Laney brought up the point of like Zombieland, like that is in the horror movie genre. It's more of a comedy though, but it's still considered a horror movie.
Yeah, we were talking about it the other day, right? Like I think horror has almost become like a dump category where it really is like any movie that exhibits like a like horror trope or a horror theme, right? So like if you have a zombie, it's a horror movie. If you have a ghost, it's a horror movie. If you have uh like a maniacal supernatural as serial killer, it's a horror movie. And like it really doesn't matter what else you do along with it, right? Like Zombieland you could call an action comedy, right? And like no one would blink, but there's zombies and it's a horror movie. You know what I mean? And so I think horror can have different aspects, right? Like it doesn't all have to be at night in a house, with you like on the edge of your seat, right? And in fact, there's like examples, like we've talked about already, sometimes it happens during the day and it's a normal thing. Sometimes, you're running and sometimes, you're trapped in a room, but the genre is definitely very broad in the sense that you can have comedy or you can have it totally straight laced or it can be a thriller and there's just like there's so much breadth in a genre that probably could be better split into different subgenres to really tighten down on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
And to go into that, then Shaun of the Dead is technically a horror movie. Um, and if I was juggling with this one, but this would be on my list, but I can't call it a horror movie. But I love that movie. I love it a lot. It's such a very like those two actors. They're in like six different movies together. They're hilarious together.
Shaun of the Dead
But
is such a classic zombie movie.
and then that's based off of Dawn of the Dead, which is a fantastic zombie movie. It's probably one of my favorite zombie movies. It's great. Um, but in place of that, I put Paranormal Activity 1. Um, Mostly just because of how it made me feel. That was the like so found footage, right? I remember seeing that in theaters with my dad, like the day it came out or something, and it scared the shit out of me. Like that was such a intense movie build up. Um, and I remember, not like I was able to sleep that night, but I had like my fucking eye sitting on the corner of my room all night until I was able to fall asleep. Uh, but I just remember how creepy that movie was the first time around, and that really like I think that was like the first like movie that scared me in a long time at that point.
I know that movie alone had to have scared the fuck out of so many people that would wake up in the middle of the night. They would be like, yeah, I'm not checking the time. I don't want to see if it's 3:00 right now.
For real though.
Paranormal Activity does a good job of something that I think is common in movies that like scare people, where people actually say like, yeah, you know what, that creeped me out a little bit, which is the horror feels believable, right? Like despite the fact it's supernatural, you look at it and you can kind of picture yourself in that situation. And there's times you just can't, right? Like you're like, well, you know, like I'm never gonna be in an Iowa cornfield, you know, with hillbillies with chainsaws chasing me, right? It's just like that's
I'm never
not
gonna
in
be in
my
space with
life.
Jason.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like movies like that, and I think we talked about this the other day. I think part of the reason The Ring scared so many people is you're like, shit, I have a VCR in my room. You know, now that's an insane statement, but at the time in 2002, you're like, hey, I have a VCR. You know, what happens when Billy passes me a cassette and says, hey man, check this out, and then you know, now it's too late.
Yeah,
And so
just a video of his asshole.
that's right. Now I'm scarred and scared. But
And now you have to send it to 7 people or you're gonna die.
yeah. But I think that's part of what made Paranormal Activity resonate with a lot of people is like, you know, like, you know, you're watching it, you're just in someone's bedroom and now, you know, they're on the ceiling and you're like, shit, I have a bedroom.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's true in a lot of horror that impacts people is you see something in the movie that resonates with you in much the same way that a lot of very religious people often have a lot stronger reaction to some of these like supernatural possession movies, because you know when you buy into that mythos, right, that's a thing that can happen, whereas
Right.
you know you don't buy it, you know, if you don't believe in ghosts, a ghost movie's not going to scare you too much.
Absolutely. Yeah, that.
And
Go
again, the found footage aspect of it, where it's set up where there's a camera in different rooms of the house, you know, like that's super believable, especially like if you have a kid and you have to have cameras set up, you know, to watch your kid, stuff like that. Like imagine you have your kid on the video baby monitor and you just see something like floating, you know, it's like what the absolute fuck, like that's terrifying.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way it was filmed, I think was, you know, brilliant, especially for the time, because it's found footage, but it's also kind of what we're talking about, where it's not all over the place. It's not like someone walking around with a GoPro bouncing up and down all the time. So,
Yeah.
and it was a slow crawl, but like fast enough where it like keeps you interested from the get go. But the slow crawl was like in the horror of like I'm getting creeped out, like
That
my
was
skin's starting to
definitely a
crawl.
tense movie.
Right.
Like throughout the entire movie was tense.
Yeah. Did you have something else to add to that, Z?
No. No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Last one again. I'm bad with top fives, but this one just came to mind was As Above, So Below. That is the one where the group of people go into the Paris catacombs, and essentially, long story short, they basically end up in hell. Like it's not like it's not like they're down there and they see like fire or whatever, but all this creepy shit's starting to happen. It's really claustrophobic. But the idea behind it is they dug a little too far deep and now they're like
Stuck in
hell,
Paris.
essentially. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that movie. Was that a found footage movie or no?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
It's
I
fine,
remember is people telling me about the car lighting on fire. Was that not a scene?
Yes.
There was like a car.
Yeah.
that
I think
just
so. I think that was
went on
towards the
fire.
end of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of like Drag Me to Hell, where the fucking like hell opened and.
That was a solid
By
movie.
the way, like not an aside, but like that has one of the better endings I think in a horror movie, because like at the very end I thought she was scot free, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
like the last 2 minutes, man, it's like no, let's talk about that.
Well,
Um,
that's where I like Cabin in the Woods, because it's just like, oh, you didn't solve the problem.
yeah, no,
The problem's there. You're not leaving. You know, and oh, another part of like Cabin in the Woods that I loved was Chris
Chris
Hemsworth,
Hemsworth,
right?
Yeah, his
Right?
character.
Was it Chris or was it Liam? It was Chris.
It was
no,
Chris.
it's Chris.
Chris riding the motorcycle and splatting into the like
Bro.
invisible wall.
Oh my
I love
god. That was amazing. That was something I didn't expect in that movie.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
But yeah,
Nope,
Landy, I'm
that
gonna open the
goes our
floor to you.
list.
But one quick thing on Blair Witch, going back to that real quick. So you are actually supposed to see the witch from what Landy said. It's let me just read the paragraph. One of the creepiest elements of the movie is the fact that you never see any footage of the Blair Witch, meaning that it could be anything and could be as scary as your imagination allows. But that was actually an accident. During the filming, the camera was supposed to catch a glimpse of the woman in white when the actors are running in panic out of their tent. However, the footage was never actually captured, and the filmmaker decided not to reshoot.
I like that you fact checked me mid fucking podcast. Like, thank goodness I was right.
Well,
'Cause that
I
would've-
was curious about I was curious about that, and then I saw like a top 5 like things you didn't know. The rest of these are fucking stupid, but I believed you. It was just I want to read more into that.
Well, I feel fortunate Reddit did not fail me here, so thank you.
This is actually well, I mean, you got it from Reddit. Mine is route1apparel.com.
A solid fact checking website. If I've
Yeah.
ever heard one.
From the source.
So my list and my list is, I think, a little older, not because I'm older, just to be clear, but
Shock.
I looked at this a little bit in the light of what were things that I thought like made an impact on horror, and by the way, are all movies that I enjoyed. And so I'll start off. I think every good list of horror probably needs a Stephen King on there, with The Shining. And
Okay.
so the Shining, I think just hits like a couple things. Like when you talk about relatable horror, I think it might be the example of familial horror, and just like how just a messed up family dynamic in itself can be anxiety inducing. There's obviously the strain between the couple's relationship. It's heavily alluded that he's abused the son. There's just a lot there that like immediately can resonate with you regardless of what phase of life you're in. That everything else aside, I think like kind of builds tension. And then a big one is you have the reversal of like the evil child trope. I think for a lot of the movie, it's kind of pointing you that Danny's the problem, and obviously he is not the true problem. But coming off of Children of the Corn, and having the evil possessed kid is like such a gimme, and I think Kubrick does a good job of trying to sell you on that, and then flipping that on its head. And then you really get to see like this character break down, right? Like through the movie, you're seeing Jack Nicholson just kind of like losing his shit. And I think when you see that his manuscript is just the same line over and over and over again, and here this guy has just like broken down and is like given into both isolation and his drinking, and just snaps. It's just like everyone can relate with like having to run from your dad, and it just like notched it to 11 because they're in this creepy abandoned hotel in the middle of nowhere. So I think there's a lot of people that, even if you weren't scared by The Shining, you felt very uncomfortable with The Shining, and like deserves a place.
So I have not actually seen the full movie. I have only seen parts. But
Same.
I will always love to talk about the here's Johnny scene. It is so like embedded into horror that it's like
Yep.
been part of different movies and shows, whether they were horror movies or not. Like Child's Play
Johnny.
did it in the first one.
Yep.
Some cartoons have done it. Like I think Futurama, and I think Powerpuff Girls at one point did it too. It's just
I'm sure Simpsons and Family Guy has probably done their own.
yeah, it's just such a crazy good scene to like, you know, get everyone terrified, depending on like what's going on.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think there's another sequence that's very iconic, which is with the twins in the hallway.
Hallway, yeah.
Yeah.
There Kubrick like has like moments in there that just, you know, are universal experiences in terms of them showing back up in horror.
Did you play Back 4 Blood, Landy?
I did not. That's like the Left 4 Dead 3, right?
Yeah, so there is a part of like one of the buildings you're running through where it's the same wallpaper, and you can see I think there's a little like toy tricycle on the ground and everything too.
I mean, it's like I know Family Guy has done, you know, like Stewie on the tricycle, and
Yep.
you know, again, like that's been done a bunch. You know, it's just there's some the like typewriter desk in the middle of a big room, right? Like there are just iconic scenes there that have like resurfaced. So that one's on my list. I have another one which again is maybe not something people think of as traditional horror, and that's Alien. And I really debated here. I didn't know we could combine because I think Alien and Aliens, the sequel, really go hand in hand. I think Aliens, the second movie, is probably one of the best examples of the sequel just beating the original in a case where the original is also a very good movie. But
Yeah.
Aliens just has a lot going for it. It is one of the first to really combine sci-fi and horror in a way that has made, I think, a lasting impression. And a lot of times the two genres, you know, hold hands. As well as it really followed the, excuse me, it really followed like the hidden monster concept that we had in Jaws. And you know, it's why it's Jaws in space, right? But Alien just hits on a couple of different levels, right? There's this concept that they do really well of like you are stuck on this ship, and like the ship is like the corridors are narrow, you know, it's like you're kind of cramped in the whole time. So it's like not only are you afraid of first the little face hugger and then obviously the alien, but you're like stuck on this cramped mining ship the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, you have I think a great example of like sound really making the movie. You know, Alien for almost half the movie is quiet, and you know, there's like some dialogue, but there's these periods of silence and not too much. And as the film kind of ramps, you know, about halfway through, you know, the self-destruct alarm is going off, the lights are flashing, there's just like all this noise, and you know, it really like allows the track to kind of like build to the horror. And you have this whole concept of like first you know, like the attack of the body snatchers, right? You know, here you have this little parasite that gloms onto you, and again in an extremely impactful moment, right when it first bursts out of the guy's chest, is again, it's like an iconic horror moment that like it doesn't just freak you out, it freaks everyone on the ship out. Like it is horrifying to witness. And you know, in addition to the fact that the alien is huge and terrifying, it has this very like under your skin kind of like penetrative like motif through it, right? It is like telling you throughout the movie like I am going to get inside of you in like a, like not a possession way, but literally inside you. That just like adds on uh to like the like dread of all this. And by the way, as a total bonus, we have Ash the android who and Mother the computer who are working against them. It's like the birth of Skynet happening alongside the alien invasion. So just like a couple
Well, yeah,
great
you
things.
think your day is already bad with an alien.
Exactly.
Like, the things you created are turning against you too.
Yeah, so it's just
you mentioned Mummy earlier, and that made me think of scarabs. You know,
Yep.
so
Oh yeah.
what you're saying of get inside you, the scarabs are fucking terrifying because you watch that and you feel that. You
Yeah.
know, the same as like you have like the chest burster, right? And you're just like, ah, you know.
And like without going too much down it, there's like a lot of like phallic imagery to it. The alien with the second mouth that juts out, and the one guy gets penetrated with it. It's just it's like a sense of like psychosexual horror that just couples along with the fact that the thing has claws and drips acid and is just like the worst possible situation.
Yeah, Ridley Scott had some weird shit with mouths. I mean what were those things called? That just like face huggers? Yeah, those
Yeah.
big ass fucking suction cup just going down your throat, and then
Yeah.
and then the
Unpleasant.
second tongue, or the tongue with its own mouth and teeth from the
Yep.
aliens themselves. Like Ridley Scott, man, you were into some weird shit, bro. You still are probably.
Yeah, so it's just like, again, I think it's like a great movie, and just to contrast it briefly with Jaws, like Jaws does a great job of building suspense without barely showing the monster, right? Jaws did it, Alien did it, Cloverfield attempts the same thing, but in Jaws there's always a sense of like, just don't go in the lake, right? Like I can avoid a lot of pain by not going in the lake. It's like Alien trapped them on the ship, and I think a lot of times space is like a or a ship or however you want to do it is like a cheap cop out for like how do you keep them contained with the problem.
While trying to escape.
Yeah, but it's effective, right? Because
Yeah.
you can't just run outside.
Right. You actually got to plan this stuff out.
Yeah.
And to think,
So
Jaws was a PG movie, wasn't it?
was Jaws PG? That's
Think
a good
so.
I
question.
think it was.
There's
So, Beetlejuice was a PG movie. Came out in the 80s. They say fuck it. I did
Interesting.
not realize there's a scene where, and I've only ever watched it on TV. I watched it on Hulu or whatever for the first time, and they're in the model, or Beetlejuice is in the model, and he like accidentally knocks something over. He kicks it over, and he's like, "Nice fucking model."
You're right.
Yep.
Yeah, so 1975, I don't mean to cut you off, but before the classification system had a PG-13
Oh,
category,
They switched
Jaws
it up.
was PG.
Yeah. They had to switch it up
Interesting.
because of Jaws.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, there's going to be an Alien TV series directed by Ridley Scott.
Fantastic.
Produced by Ridley Scott.
We'll have to watch that. I love the like Alien and then like Predator and then they combine them. It's just like everything about that I love.
Same.
And then you have AVP, which was
Fantastic.
okay. I thought it was okay. Well, okay, AVP 1 was good. Maybe AVP 2 was the one that
Requiem was a little
Yeah.
much. I feel like
I
they
remember not
focused-
liking one of them.
Requiem. They just focused a little too much on the story, the
alien?
people's stories.
Yeah, no one wants that.
Yeah,
I literally
it's like-
want 2 hours of predators hunting aliens.
Yeah, it's like Godzilla
That's
movies.
me with
like,
anything Godzilla,
like
dude.
who the fuck goes to see a Godzilla movie for I mean, no offense to Bryan Cranston, but just his storyline
90%
about
of
his
the
wife and
science.
stuff like like
Yeah.
no, we want to see monsters duke it out, all this fucking collateral damage, blah blah blah. But yeah, continue.
All right. So this one I think is probably the most iconic horror movie and probably the one most people think of if you just say the words horror movie, and that's The Exorcist. And I have a memory of The Exorcist. So I was like 8 to 10, like in that range. And I wanted to see The Exorcist because I was like kind of like just like getting into scary movies. And so we went to the local VHS store and we were there and my mom like had the movie and there was like a Marine there, like in his like fatigues. And he saw my mom with the movie and he goes, "You're gonna watch The Exorcist?" And she was like, "Yeah, my son wants to see." He goes, "I still won't watch it again." He goes, "Scared me when I saw it." And he goes, "Never saw it since." And I think that is like true for an entire generation. There is a generation that saw this movie in 1973 and has like wants nothing to do with that movie again. I actually looked this up before tonight, but until Stephen King's It remake in 2017, The Exorcist was the highest grossing R-rated movie, period. And so, there were stories of people fainting and vomiting, and it was so intense, and has really put horror on the map, to the extent, like it wasn't after the classics, The Mummy and Dracula and so on. But really put possession like on the map as like a subcategory. Like this is horrific, and now we need to make 14,972 movies that are just like this.
Right.
Has potentially one of the most iconic like musical hooks in it. Like everyone knows the sound of the piano associated like with the priest.
Yeah.
It is everywhere. It's been done in TV shows, in movies. I mean, it just constantly gets come up. The Boondocks has done it to be as far away from The Exorcist as possible as a type of media. But there's something about The Exorcist in that it happens in like broad daylight during the day. The story is almost a documentary in the way it's like presented to you, right? It's not dark. They're not trying to hide it. They go as far out of their way as possible to let you know it's 100% possession. Like there's no questions like could be this, could it be that? The doctors straight up say she's healthy physically, she's healthy psychologically. You should call a priest. And there's just something about that, like not having to fall into the answer, but them just telling you like, hey, this is really messed up, like a problem that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
And it just has so many like iconic moments as you kind of see Regan devolve throughout the movie. You have like the bed shaking and like bouncing all around. You have like as she like starts to like swear and speak in like a very demonic male-esque voice.
Well, even the actress herself wasn't the same after that movie.
No. Yeah, it was impactful. And I think everyone here can picture her head spinning 180 degrees around, and her like vomiting green, pea soup everywhere, and like stabbing herself with the crucifix and telling her mom to lick me. I mean, like some powerful moments. And with an ending that's like stunning, when the spoilers, when the priest throws himself out the window to avoid being possessed himself. It's just like such a cold like bleak end to something where you thought there was like
there's
some
gonna be a
hope
happy ending, yeah, but it wasn't.
So just like I don't know, like really creates like dread throughout the whole thing in a very daylight, guys are running, going to the gym, living their life kind of way.
My thing with the movie is it's gross.
Yeah.
Like it's you kind of want to like turn away from some parts where it's just like, oh man, like the the head spinning and then the puking, all that, like stabbing yourself with a cross. Like you look at those, it's like, oh fuck, because like a lot of horror movies, they either go one or the other with it, where they try to jump scare you or they try to make like creepy story, and then they have the ones like horror like slaughter movies where it's just like a bunch of blood and gore. The no blood and gore, not really. But just the way they made her look, the makeup, everything, that's the kind of stuff that made me want to turn away. I'm like, oh, that's gross. And I find it fantastic because, it's a different way to scare people away from watching it, or to avert your eyes.
Yeah, and ironically, the fact that it's like before CGI and there's not a ton of special effect, obviously her head spinning around, but
that was real.
It just like it feels authentic in a way that like a lot of horror doesn't, nowadays. It just feels so over the top and so insane, or like I can't picture this happening, but this wealthy woman struggling to get answers for her daughter, like like the bed shaking. It's just like it's kind of visceral in the sense that you're like you can picture it. Just like Paranormal Activity, right? Like you could worry that this could happen in your life, your home. And I think that's part of the reason why it stuck with people the way it did.
You also brought up earlier that the fact that like people who are more religious are more in tune to those kind of movies. So someone who, you know, is like a devout Christian would probably see that and be like, "Oh, that's fucking terrifying. Like I don't want to, you know, ever experience that in my life. What if one of my loved ones got possessed, you know?" Because they believe in that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Right.
And just so I said it, the fact that priests die in it, there's
No
almost
one's
like the
safe.
yeah, this like, juxtaposition where you think, if there's anyone that would not, either be affected or possessed, right? It would be, this religious person. And I just think, the older priest dies, the younger priest, almost gets possessed. It just like leaves you with a, none of us are safe.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So my last two are ones where like I would have like a association with the movie pretty strongly. So one of them is The Grudge, and that is the last time that I was like physically scared in my own life. And so this came out in 2004. I was in high school, and if you haven't seen The Grudge, the Grudge monsters make like a very like unique noise, like kind of like a creaking, groaning, like a
Right.
that was like very unique. And so I remember I had gone with this girl. I took her back to her house. We were like on her porch, and like as she was going to go in, like like I had my arms around her and I made the noise, and she like freaked the fuck out. And I like had such a good laugh on it. And I drove home. I remember it was a Sunday night. So like I had to like get home and then like take the trash cans down to the street. And so I'm in the garage. I'm like pushing one of the cans through, and I hear like something like fall over and then like skittering, and I ran. And keep in mind, in high school, I was 6'5", 315 pounds, running full speed, like with this trash can, just all the way down to the end of the driveway, back up to get the other one, all the way down and directly into the house, like full panicked running. Big guys don't run a lot. Like if you're a big person, like running is an extreme measure that's used in emergencies only, or because they're giving away a hot dog and you have to get there immediately. And I just remember running, like actually running, and like for this like brief, like 45-second period, just like scared for no reason because I just seen it, just had a laugh. But The Grudge. For those that haven't seen it's just a eerie take on the possessed house trope, right? It's like if you go into this house, the grudge the ironically the house is the main character, and there are some movies that do that. Ironically, I think you could argue The Shining does it as well. The hotel might be the main character, but the house is the main character. I think The Grudge actually does an interesting thing where you almost don't get attached to any of the characters. It like jumps forward, it jumps back, it shows you these people that enter the house, and then the house like goes after them. And it's one of those things that I think some horror movies do very well, which is when you center kind of like the malice or whatever the malevolence is in a place. As a viewer, you think to yourself, just get out of the place, easy peasy, go away from the place. And then when it like hunts you down far away from it, that like really has, I think, a very excellent scary effect when done well. So like, there's a scene where like someone's in the hospital and like the wife is like coming after him, and it's just like you thought you were safe. You were so far away from the apartment, but um it just does such a good job, I think, by switching constantly both between time and between characters afflicted by the house's presence. It's just like a bunch of little horrific vignettes. And it's like it had the effect of making, I think, a pretty unsettling movie that maybe the sequels did not do the best job of following. But I think it came it came 2 years after The Ring, which, you know, I think was kind of like the big introduction into foreign horror for a lot of people. But I just thought it was well done. It scared me. I've seen a lot of them, and so anything that gets a legitimate like scare out of me, it's hard not to put on the list.
See, I
Did
always
you ever
thought,
watch Ju-on?
Yes,
The
the original like source material. I've
yeah.
seen the first one. I know there's multiple of them.
I always thought that The Ring and Grudge were so synonymous. Like, just growing up, those were the movies where I'm just like, you kind. So, for example, all the other movies that I would have seen up until that point, like there was a kind of hope, like, hey, someone's gonna survive. No, but like with The Ring and The Grudge, you kind of just have this sense or knowing that no matter what's going on, like they're fucked. There's no like, hey, I'm gonna survive somehow. I'll figure a way out. It's like no. Like once you're kind of put into this limelight for these horror monsters to come after you, yeah, you're kind of fucked. Like there's just
Yep.
no going around it.
The thing with those movies is they don't really give you the feeling of like you could fight this. Like you have
Right.
Michael Myers, you have Jason, you have Freddy Krueger. In all those movies, there's a sense of like, okay, maybe we could fight back somehow. With these things, these are like spirits that are attached to you, and there's no getting away from it kind of deal, where you have to go out of your way to do something else, like burn the house down or shut the fucking well or whatever it was out of the ring, you know. Um, and those just having that, and then again, like the whole it attaching itself to you deal, where you could be in a hospital and then randomly it's fucking there. Like that's so scary. And then you said the sound too. The that's so fucking scary. Also, I was typing into to IMDb and then just going through like it's not common where I see a movie poster and I go, I gotta get rid of that off my screen, you know? Like there is a creepy like I think it's Ju-on The Grudge 2. That picture, like I remember it like from the movies and just picturing that in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna wake up at 2 a.m. I'm gonna go to the bathroom and I'm gonna remember that and I'm gonna be looking around the fucking corner making sure that's like not there, you know?
Yeah, I it did a good job of like imprinting and you know, again, it's like you know, everyone has a safe space, right? And you know, like for a lot of us that's home or the bedroom or you know, whatever it may be, right? And it is disconcerting when that is not a safe space. And I
Right.
thought it did a good job of making you feel like this is hopeless, you know, this is dark. This is a rough way to go.
Yeah.
For
And so
sure.
and so while the rest of my list might not have been in order, these two are definitely at the top, and this one is at the top. It is legitimately one of my favorite movies, regardless of genre. It, I think, might even have the distinction of being the best Christmas movie of all time. It came out 5 days before Christmas in 1996. I would argue it might be the most important horror movie in our generation in terms of what it did for the genre, and that is Scream. And there we go. Um, and I know some of that sounds hyperbolic or like sarcastic. I mean that 100%. I think what Wes Craven did with Scream in 96 was critical for the genre being what it is today. And there's a couple different reasons for that. So Scream, I think, really was a torchbearer. I think we had a great period of horror kind of in the late 70s through the 80s where we had these classic um, series, right? We had Nightmare on Elm Street, we had Child's Play, we had Halloween, we had Aliens. Yeah, you know, we had these like great series that all kind of ended right at the end of the 80s. And then, you know, like I challenge you, like off the cuff, can you name me a really good horror movie from like the first half of the 90s? There's not a ton to pick from there. So the genre I think was kind of like on its last legs, so to speak. And so Scream, I think, really served to like bring energy and life into a genre that I think it was starting to get written off at that point. And I think it was so successful at it that I believe a year later, maybe 2 years later, you saw almost a carbon copy in it in another great movie, which was I Know What You Did Last Summer. So I think just in that sense, Scream was big, but I think it did a lot for the genre. So one of the big things is it changed the concept of a scream queen. I think there was a very common concept we saw with lead female characters in especially in slasher movies in the 80s, which was the pure virginal, innocent and naive heroine who like because she was untouched would be untouched by the killer. And it's a trope that largely came true. I mean, Laurie from Halloween is like the definition of like a classic scream queen. And Sydney Prescott is almost the exact opposite. She's someone who is kind of smart and cagey. And ironically, as the series goes on, her trauma kind of colors her character in a way that makes her near paranoid for very good reason. And so you then had this series of characters where they're a little bit smarter and they don't, trip immediately when the person is walking slowly at them and they actively attempt to avoid these terrible situations. And I think that leads us to the biggest thing that Scream gave us, which was a very metatextual look at horror movies. I think the biggest trope of all horror movies pre-Scream is that no one had ever seen a horror movie in a horror movie, ever, right? Like no one talks about it. No one's identified a zombie, a vampire. Like nothing is ever like super out of the ordinary. And Scream like literally took it on the nose and in the first 12 minutes with Drew Barrymore makes it clear like, do you like scary movies? What's your favorite? By the way, you might be in a scary movie. And Scream obviously takes it to like a whole new level, right? Like the whole movie is almost premised on a love of scary movies because before that, the kind of joke was like the viewer of the horror movie knew this was a horror movie and knows about horror movies, but the people never do. And so Scream really put it front and center like, hey, this is kind of like a horror movie and here's these rules to survive a horror movie. And then it went out of its way to try to cancel out the rules that it established. And now it's almost a joke. Like Cabin in the Woods, I think, is a great example of almost a modern day rehashing of Scream in the sense of it also takes a kind of let's laugh at horror movies as we do our own spin on a horror movie. And I just think like it's iconic in a lot of ways. It reinvigorated the genre. It made us rethink what a slasher is. And it allowed us to now recognize that we're in a horror and to try to be intelligent about it.
The one thing I enjoy about Scream is Drew Barrymore was kind of set up to be the main girl. She was a bigger name at the time. At the beginning of the movie, the trailers, they all showed it's going to be Drew Barrymore in this. No, dead. First 15 minutes or whatever, dead. And then Sydney Prescott is now the protagonist at this point, and I like the hard twist to that because nobody expected it, at least not at that time.
It's been a long time since I've heard of Scream. I don't remember anything about those movies. God, they made what, 5 at this point?
Yeah. I think the one that just came out was 5.
Jeez, yeah.
And they are making 6. Also, Matthew Lillard, what a great human being. Love the guy. And then the fact that he was, Scream, Ghostface, it was great.
I mean, there's so many good elements, right? Like one of the few movies, ironically, Halloween is kind of like this, but one of the few movies where Ghostface is a concept and not a person. The fact there's twin killers and
isn't that what they're trying to push more into for these newer ones?
Yeah.
Compared to the originals, it was.
And that's how you get away. Like the reason Scream doesn't feel supernatural. I mean, it feels supernatural, right? Like you think Ghostface is just like Jason in the sense he's like teleporting around. You think you know who he is, and it's like Ghostface stabs, who you think it is, and
it's just more than one person.
Yeah, because like who knew that a Halloween what's the store? Spirit Halloween
Spirit
Spirit?
Halloween.
For Halloween, yeah.
Yeah, who knew that Spirit Halloween sells more than one of the same masks? And it's just like it's really effective in how it sets it up. And look, do they start to go off the rails a little bit? Sure. Like you know, because at some point I think it's like memeing on itself a little bit too much. Um, but you know, like we like now look. I think we are smarter horror watchers because of Scream, and you know now like you start watching the movie, now you're looking for like, hey, is it giving me any clues here? Like, are they trying to push me too far in this direction? Let me like pull back on it because you know, like they were very formulaic, and now you know now we're trying to get you in the formula so we can get out of it and leave you wondering.
I also like that he's still kind of like Wes Craven still kind of did that same style with the Nightmare movies. What was it, like Dream Warriors, when they're just
Mhm.
like, hey, you know, we're not just gonna be these kids they're gonna keep dying one after another. No, we can actually, you know, figure out what's going on and fight back. I think Wes Craven's pretty good at that. I mean, he
He's a
knows,
classic.
yeah, he just knows how to implement that stuff very well.
Yeah, I just, you know, it's one of those things like, is it campy? Sure. You know, is it, you know, horror comedy? Sure. You know, but it does the mechanics so well that it's able to give you like this comedic, you know, kind of lighthearted take at times. And I think that's part of the reason it's so effective because you know, it like is able to like calm you down a little bit. And that's kind of what makes Ghostface cause so much more panic, right? Is that, you know, here you were just laughing and now someone just took a butcher's knife to the back and whoops, we're not joking around again.
Right. I it reminds me of the Scary Movie.
Oh,
With the
like,
Wayans brothers.
yep.
The first one, when they finally get to that point where they unmask the killer that's playing Ghostface, and it was two people all along, and they're just like, all right, let's make it look like, you know, we're gonna end up killing Cindy, and then we'll make it look like the killer's still at large. So I shoot you, and then you shoot me, or like I stab you and you stab me, and then like the first guy that gets stabbed or shot, uh,
One
he's
of these
about to
guys.
die. He's about to die. And then he's like, okay, my turn. But then he dies before he could even do that to the other guy.
Well, you know, and it's like you know, I think even in Scream, right? Like you know, you have this sense like here they've like been plotting this the whole time and they have like the way out and he stabs Matt and he goes, "Hey man, that's really deep." You know, and it's like you're kind of laughing at this, but you know, it's like it's kind of morbid, right? Because you're laughing and you're like, God, man, they like really thought about this and you know, like that, you're like, this could have actually happened. Like it is, Scream is pretty believable in terms of, you know what I mean? Like this is a horror setup that you could see happening in your little town.
Right.
And all it takes is a mask and a knife. And there you go.
And a love of scary movies.
Yeah. But then you can just, you know, figure out who that is, because who's going to be that crazy enough that enjoys horror movies that much? Venus. So, you know.
Exactly.
If anyone goes
Exactly.
missing in Venus's hometown, you know, it's sus that Venus isn't here as we're watching about or talking about people being stabbed.
And none of us have seen Billy in like a week.
Right.
Yeah.
Billy did send me a TikTok though, so
Yeah,
he's
you
alive.
don't think someone could be using his phone?
Venus
Come
is
on,
using his phone.
Ghostface does that.
You're right. I haven't been spammed with TikToks, so maybe
Mm.
it's not Billy. Maybe they sent me one just to be like, oh
You know
yeah,
how it's not Billy because he sent it to you?
and not us.
Yeah.
You're
So,
right.
rest in peace, Billy and Grandma.
And your
It's
priest.
Okay, it's a Phasmophobia TikTok. It's meant for me. He's alive.
Oh god.
Phasmophobia is on sale, Andy. If you ever want to play with
Really?
us.
But we have better Phasmophobia that we were just playing the other day.
I hate it so much. That was so fucking dumb.
I want Havoc to pay the $8 back to me.
I was so mad when, like, with Z when we played it. It's called Boo Men, and it's
Yeah.
basically Phas, but you have to steal shit.
I've seen it. Yeah, you guys
And,
have been talking about it a lot lately.
I'm pretty sure a couple of the rounds that we played, some of the items were glitched, and we weren't even able to beat the game because we couldn't get the items.
Damn. Get
I
fucked.
had to die valiantly in order to distract the killer so Venus could get the last item and get out.
Twice, I was insta-killed by the ghost because it spawns, and it spawned on top of me both times.
Damn. So
Also,
Venus
honorable
survived
mention,
by herself.
open house.
Another
Z.
reason why Venus would be the killer, the new Ghostface. She's the only one that survives.
Exactly. Honorable mention Z open house. Best movie ever.
I hate you.
Never seen it.
So it's amazing. You should.
Mm.
Netflix original, baby.
I will say there's one movie that I was like really tempted upon my list instead of The Shining, and literally, if I had more free time today, I probably would have replaced it, and that's Final Destination.
Okay.
And I think it's because look, there's no doubt that death cheats to like make some of the kills are just so like insane, you know? But I will say this again to speak about like our generation. I think we have a whole generation of people whose heart rate increases if you're driving behind a truck that has logs on it on the freeway.
All
And it's
because
just
of
like
that movie.
Yeah.
it's just like it's so over the top, but at the same time, it's like, you know, like I step a tiny bit more carefully when I'm in the shower. And like you know what I mean? I like try not to get behind the truck with like the big items that could fall out. Like no joke, I was driving the other day and there was a truck that had a bunch of large PVC pipes hanging over, and I was just like, I feel like I saw someone get impaled in the eye on an episode of Final Destination. I was like, let me just pull over here. And it's just like you know, like sometimes horror is effective because it has you like gripping the edge of your seat for 2 hours, you know, and you're just like tense and wound up and just like, you know, uncomfortable. And sometimes horror is effective because it just sticks with you. And now I am slightly afraid that a large tree is going to decapitate me on the freeway. And you know, like the movies are fun. You know, if you like haven't seen the one in 3D, that was a mistake because that was a fun waste of $20. But it just kind of sticks with you. And like I said, I think there's no one that's like in our generation that doesn't have like a Final Destination kill that like is always kind of like you're in a tanning bed and you're like, let me just make sure this one isn't locked. So I think that gets an honorable mention.
And then
Yeah,
there's
I'm
me.
terrified of naked blonde girls in tanning beds now.
And then there's me in the middle of the night just sticking my foot out a little bit more just so the boogeyman can, you know, yank me out and put me out of my misery.
Suck them toes.
Yeah, that too.
I want you to try. Do it.
Please.
Okay,
I
but
painted
so
them for you.
I don't know if you still would do this, Landy, because you are a little bit older than us. But are you still in that stage of life where you'll turn off the like bathroom light or something on your way back to your bedroom, and you might walk just a little bit faster than you normally would, you know?
You know,
I still do.
So I think Z and Venus have heard me talk about this, but when I was young, I saw at my grandmother's house, in like a back-to-back, I saw Child's Play and Puppet Master. And
Okay.
like I was young enough that like I still had a teddy bear in my room. You know what I mean? And so I was like legitimately scared of the dark for like at least a year. Where like if I turned off the like chandelier, you know, the light that goes like from the downstairs to the upstairs, I would like run up the stairs.
Yeah.
And there came a point where I just told myself like, look, if it's here, like I don't think the light is gonna stop it, right? But I think everyone moves a little bit faster. And the real key to success, if you're thinking it through, is you turn on your bedroom light, you turn on the lamp by your bed, then you turn off the bedroom light. So you like back into the light, so that way you don't have to run through the dark.
Survival tips by Landy.
Right. I this is a new house. We lived here only for like 2 months now, 3 months now. So it's new to us. I mean, so we have night lights, just down the hall, because again, I don't know what I'm going to be bumping into at night because I don't have this fucking house memorized, right? Um, but there's still like those like dark corners, and you brought up, the light's not going to change anything. To me, the light's going to change by line of sight for if I'm going to beat the fuck out of this thing or run. Like, I got to get a good look at this before I'm. Like, if I got Chucky coming after me, I'm drop kicking that motherfucker. If I have the fucking, like, Babadook coming after me, I'm dipping. Like,
Well, you have to work with what you have, right? So again, when you're a big guy, you're probably not outrunning the ghost. So like you have to be a little more deliberate. So I have more of a like come and get it and I'll make the last stand kind of mentality, right? So it's like, I guess yeah, don't let it surprise you. But I will say this, there is a light like kind of in the dining room that it's just like a lamp that I just like leave on low all the time. So like there's like a little bit of light in the interior of the house.
yeah.
And so knock on wood, if light does scare away the Babadook, he won't make it to my bedroom.
Right.
Unless he comes in through the balcony, in which case I'm fucked.
There have been times.
The ghosts don't come from outside. Silly.
There have been times when I'm just so exhausted while I'm like going to bed, and I just hear that extra creak behind me. I'm just like, can you at least make it fast? Because I'm trying to go to sleep. like that. Sometimes you're just like too dead tired to like even care about my paranoia.
With your luck, man, they're gonna install like the nerve winder in you. Not gonna make it fast at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah, shit, that'll show them. You know what? It'll be like the it'll be like that Rick and Morty episode with the Cenobites.
There you go.
Where it's like they
Your cringe is delicious to us.
they do it for pain, but it turns out to be pleasure.
That's right. This embarrasses me, which gives me pleasure, which makes me sad, which makes me happy.
Oh shit. I'm actually kind of surprised at how long this episode took. I mean,
yeah.
I wonder how much long. It probably would have hit like 2 hours if we had Venus on here, because it's been past an hour, but yeah, this was a fun episode. Landy, I'm glad you joined us.
Yeah, pleasure to join you guys.
Your explanations have been so fucking good that I just did not know how to respond to some of them.
You are a very well spoken individual, and you do not fit in with us bumfucks that can't speak. So.
Right.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and happy to join you.
You're
and if
more
you
than
want
welcome.
to come on again, man.
Absolutely.
Always happy to.
Maybe next time we'll have a full squad. We'll have Billy and we'll have Venus. Who knows?
Let's kick Billy out.
Yeah, for good.
The replacement. The
exactly.
replacement.
Exactly.
This was his interview. He passed.
All right. Well, thanks for anyone that's watched the whole hour and a half. This has been a fun one. We've got one more spooky episode. We'll see how that one goes.
Potentially.
Yeah.
We'll see if we get there.
Fingers crossed. Nothing bad happens, so we don't have to skip it, or who knows. But yeah. Thanks for joining us, and deuces.
Have a good one.